Welcome, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button as we try to build this thing up. Packers with a statement win, a dominant win over to the Detroit Lions, 27-13. Detroit with a garbage time touchdown with less than a minute to go for their only touchdown of the afternoon. This was a statement win for Green Bay. You can say, oh, it's week one and there's 16 more games to go and all that. This was a statement win. You hadn't beaten Detroit at home since 2021. You were 1-5 against the Lions in the last 6 contests. This is a really, really good Detroit Lions team, and I know they lost Ben Johnson. I know they lost Aaron Glenn. They brought back the core of their team. Aiden Hutchinson played 5 games last year, 4.5 games, and then broke his leg. He didn't play either contest against Green Bay. A year ago, he was back for this one. Like, Detroit has a good core, a good nucleus. We'll get to Detroit's side of things, but this absolutely was a statement when you're these Packers players say the goal is to win the North, the goal is to win the division, the goal is to win the North, and Matt LaFleur says the goal is to win the division. If you win the division, you host at least one home game, one home playoff game. And while Jordan Love in his first 2 years as a starter has gotten to the playoffs both times, he's played 3 games. They've all been on the road, at Dallas, at San Francisco, and at Philadelphia last year. A lot more friendlier, a lot more comfortable when you're playing within the confines of your home stadium. And so, yeah, this was a big win for Green Bay. It wasn't as if Green Bay had been, mopping the floor with Detroit the last few years going into this one. In fact, it was kind of a reversal of that. And so, yes, it starts with the defense. The defense was bend, don't break on a couple of possessions. And I thought, Micah Parsons had the sack. It was incredible. The first of many. Green Bay sacked Goff 4 times on the day. To me, I thought the key cog for the defense was Edgerrin Cooper. He was everywhere. 12 total tackles, 8 solo. Quay Walker had 2 TFLs. Colby Wooden, who's going to have a huge role on this team because Kenny Clark was in that package going back to Dallas. Colby Wooden had 2 TFLs. Like, Green Bay as a team had 9 tackles for loss. And one of the things I talked about in the Final Thoughts video to preview this matchup, looking at the numbers last year, and a couple of things stood out specifically with Goff and the offense and Green Bay's defensive front. Keep in mind, last year against the Lions, in 2 combined games, we're combining both of them together. In 2 combined games, Green Bay sacked Jared Goff twice. And the defensive front manufactured just 6 quarterback hits combined, not in each game. Jared Goff had all time to throw, clean pocket. Ben Johnson was pushing all the right buttons in those matchups against Green Bay. And Jared Goff was slicing and dicing. And they were running it down Green Bay's throat with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs last year. The defense for Green Bay and for Jeff Hafley set the tone. And Tony Romo said a couple of times, like, Jeff Hafley's going to be a future head coach. He's going to be a future head coach sooner rather than later. You're right, but can we let this breathe? He's only in his 2nd year as DC in Green Bay. Let that puppy breathe a little bit. But I thought Edgerrin Cooper set the tone. And, the numbers. Again, it's instant reaction. Packers win 27-13. We bounce around on these instant reactions. The game goes final. I have a sister to take care of. I get her settled in, comfortable. I come on here, boom, click record, we're off and running. But we do bounce around. So last year, Green Bay sacked Goff twice, 6 quarterback hits in 2 games combined. Today, 4 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. 9 quarterback hits in 1 game, 4 sacks. And if you go back and watch, because I mentioned last year Goff's numbers, Jared Goff under pressure, horrific last year when facing pressure. All quarterbacks are going to have their numbers take a dip. But outside of Daniel Jones last year, no quarterback, when having a clean pocket, no pressure compared to facing pressure, had a bigger differential, a bigger dip than Jared Goff. Jared Goff was 2nd in the NFL in QBR last year when sitting in a clean pocket, and that number dipped to 23rd when facing pressure. The only quarterback, qualifying quarterback that was a starter last year with a bigger differential, a bigger dip, was Daniel Jones. And if you go back and you watch some of these quarterback hits, you watch some of these 4 sacks for Green Bay, didn't have to blitz on some of them. Didn't have to blitz on a lot of them. Jeff Hafley in that defensive front. Lucas Van Ness got in there for one. Rashawn Gary nearly had a safety on another. Micah Parsons on a chase down when Goff was rolling outside of the pocket to the near sideline. They were getting hits, pressure, sacks without having to blitz a whole hell of a lot. And that was the key. You had to get to Goff, but you had to get to Goff without blitzing. Why is that? Because Goff had a 70.5% completion percentage when facing the blitz in 2024. 3rd best in the NFL. His PFF grade of 84.9 when being blitzed was 5th best in the National Football League last year. So the dilemma Jeff Hafley had was we need to get pressure on him. We can't let him sit in that pocket and be comfortable all day. And Green Bay blitzed the second fewest percentage-wise out of any team in the NFL last year. And so Hafley knew, we typically don't blitz a whole hell of a lot compared to the other teams in the NFL. I think the clip was like 17.5% for Green Bay. How can we get pressure? Well, having Micah Parsons helps a hell of a lot. Having Lucas Van Ness, who it's a small sample size, it is one game. But that Lucas Van Ness I just saw against the Detroit Lions in week 1 did not look like the Lucas Van Ness of the first 2 seasons. He was a havoc wrecker. Rashawn Gary had a sack. Colby Wooden, is he taking a leap forward? You hope so. Devontae Wyatt was wrecking plays left and right. He had to have, let me see. Devontae Wyatt had a sack. Parsons had his, and Parsons only played, I had Parsons' numbers. Parsons played 29 snaps, folks. 1 sack, 3 quarterback pressures. 3 quarterback pressures for Micah Parsons. By the way, he has 335 quarterback pressures since he entered the league in 2021. Nobody has more in the NFL. And Micah Parsons has a pressure rate of 21.1% since entering the league in 2021. Nobody has a higher pressure rate. That's how you change that matchup. That's how you change that game. Get pressure on Goff without blitzing. Green Bay did that. They checked a massive box. They set the tone. The last couple of years in this matchup, we can say it. We don't have to hide from it. Detroit was the bully. The Lions were the team punching the Packers in the mouth repeatedly. The Lions were the team that you knew they were running on certain downs, and it was just, hey, can you even stop them? Can you get to David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs? And more times than not, the answer was no. For a lot of teams in the NFL, and the Packers specifically. And so Detroit has really owned this matchup in the last couple of years. Again, Green Bay was 1-5 in the last 6 against the Lions entering this contest on Sunday. I guess it depends on when you watch this video, but I'm recording it right after the game, so entering this matchup on Sunday afternoon. Detroit was the aggressor the last 3 years. Detroit was the bully. Detroit would punch Green Bay in the mouth and say, come on, get up. What do you got? This defense set the tone for Jeff Hafley and the Green Bay Packers in this game. Bend don't break on a couple of possessions. That coming out of halftime, and keep in mind, one of the other keys, I said you got to start fast. You can't keep digging holes against the elite teams. 2 against Philly last year, 2 against Minnesota, 2 against Detroit. Just dig in these early holes, and then you're trying to play catch-up. You're trying to tread water if you're Green Bay. Last year against the Lions, Green Bay trailed at halftime 17-3 and 17-7. What was the halftime score today? 17-3 Green Bay. 10-0 after the first quarter. Green Bay came out and punched Detroit in the mouth. Punched them again. Said, you done, or what are we going to do here? And the Lions just didn't have an answer. The Lions did not quit. They do not quit. That's not a Dan Campbell coach team that ever quits. They just didn't have answers. They didn't, Green Bay was jabbing, and Detroit didn't have a counterpunch. Detroit didn't have a jab. Detroit couldn't throw a right hook. Jeff Hafley's defense had answers for everything. And the defense was the one thing I'm circling from this game. But opening drive for Green Bay's offense, 3 for 3 on third down, including that dot to Tucker Kraft for a 15-yard touchdown. And Detroit had a personal foul penalty to help out on that drive. Love had 6 completions to 6 different pass catchers on that opening drive. Not in the first half, not in the first quarter. On the opening drive, Jordan Love completed 6 passes to 6 different receivers. I mean, that's a great start. And then the Lions later on in the half, second quarter, they have a 9-minute drive. Bend don't break. Hold them to 3. And Green Bay's leading 17-3 at halftime. There was a laughable taunting penalty on Xavier McKinney. This is Lions-Packers. Like, if you're an official, just, unless it's egregious, get the hell out of the way. Get the hell out of the way. McKinney made a play, and he got face-to-face. Was it Khalif Raymond? I don't even remember who it was. And he gets face-to-face with the wide receiver, and they're both jawing at each other. And the receiver for the Lions bumped McKinney's helmet, which I don't mind. It wasn't like he headbutted him. It was just a little nudge. And a ref from 20 yards away just chucks a flag, and they call taunting on Xavier McKinney. And it would have been a 3rd and 9 for the Lions on that drive late in the second quarter. But instead, it automatic first down. Lions end up getting a field goal. Packers, again, bend, don't break. But if you're an official, and then later on in the game, I thought it was funny, like Amon-Ra St. Brown is jawing nonstop with Javon Bullard, Keyshawn Nixon, Jamison Williams, just from behind screaming at Xavier McKinney. And I'm glad there were not more taunting calls on either side. stay out of the way unless it's egregious, unless it's dirty. Just the call on Xavier McKinney to me was absolutely laughable. But Green Bay only gave up 3 points on the drive. And then was that late in the first half? The Lions get the field goal. Yes, it was. The Lions get the field goal, guys and gals, and it's 10-3. And you're thinking, well, I guess there was 9 minutes left, so it wasn't too late in the second quarter. But Green Bay gets the ball back, and you're like, all right, now you've given up points. Thankfully, 3, not 7. How does Green Bay respond? How about a 2-play, 65-yard touchdown drive that took 53 seconds and Love throwing a 48-yard seed to Romeo Doubs, and then following that up with a 17-yard dot on the far sideline in the end zone to Jaden Reed? That was the punch in the mouth. Green Bay's defense holding their own. 9 minutes left in the first half. Detroit finally gets on the board with a field goal. But for Detroit, that's some juju. That's some momentum. It's 10-3. It's only a touchdown game. How are the Packers going to respond? Boom. 2 plays, 65 yards, 48-yarder to Dobbs, 17-yarder to Jaden Reed. All of a sudden, it's 17-3. And Detroit's offense is right back out on the field looking for more answers. It was incredible. And then at the end of the half, I think it was less than a minute to go. Again, we go rapid fire on these, so I'm pulling it up. 1:10 to go. Amon-Ra St. Brown was lined up slot right on a 3rd and 7 from the Green Bay 16, and Goff just stared it down right from the snap. Evan Williams, second-year safety out of Oregon, jumps it perfectly, read it like a book, makes the interception, and Green Bay goes into halftime up 17-3. Now, Detroit could have gotten a touchdown on that drive. They were certainly within Bates' field range. It would have been a 33-yarder. They were at the Green Bay 16. And so worst-case scenario there for Detroit is, hey, it's 17-6 probably going into halftime. If we get that third down, if Evan Williams doesn't make that play, it could be 17-10. And I immediately thought back to last year. I immediately thought back to this matchup at Lambeau Field a year ago when it was raining and, conditions weren't great. Packers weren't great, weren't playing great, and Detroit was just manhandling Green Bay. And Jordan Love made a foolish error, and Kirby Joseph had a pick six in the final minute, maybe minute 30 of that first half. Now, Evan Williams' wasn't a pick six, but it prevented the Lions from getting 3, maybe 7 points. 3 at a minimum. And again, you still would have been leading going into halftime, but 17-3 going into the break after forcing a turnover in the red zone feels a hell of a lot better than even 17-6. And when Evan Williams made that play, I just remembered, because I was at that game last year, and I remember when Kirby Joseph had that pick six, and it sucked all the life out of Lambeau Field. This pick by Evan Williams injected all the life into Lambeau Field. Huge play. Huge play. And you talk about just straight role reversal from what we saw last year at the end of the first half with Jordan Love making a boneheaded decision compared to this year. Goff staring down Amon-Ra slot right. Evan Williams jumps it. Detroit's offense, I thought it looked vanilla in the first half. It's going to take time. And I had mentioned the one huge thing I could not ignore going into this matchup was I truly believed Green Bay was getting Detroit at a perfect time. New OC, new DC, and no matter, what dialogue's coming out of Detroit, no matter what dialogue's coming out from the national analysts and pundits, it's going to take time. You have the same core on offense. The system is just not going to be identical to what Ben Johnson did. The defense brings back a lot of that same core from last year. The defense is not going to be identical to what Aaron Glenn did. There's going to be tweaks. There's going to be things that are different. And I thought Green Bay was getting Detroit at a time where you can talk about how important it is in training camp. You get some of those reps with the starters in the preseason, maybe not. It was going to be a feel-out process for Detroit. I thought especially on offense, just to see what it looked like with a new regime and a new offensive coordinator. You want to keep things similar. Hell, if you could have a carbon copy of what that offense looked like with Ben Johnson pushing the buttons last year for this year, you sign up for that if you're Detroit. But it's just not reality. It's not realistic. Things are going to be different, at least on the margins at minimum. And so I thought Green Bay was getting Detroit at the right time, week 1, when they're still trying to sort this thing out to see what the offensive scope is going to look like. And if you watch the first 30 minutes of that game, yes, Green Bay's defense set the tone. Detroit's offense with the play calling looked awfully vanilla. Jared Goff was efficient in that first half. He did not have many incompletions, but everything was a check down to the running back, check down. Like, how many receptions did Jahmyr Gibbs have, but he didn't have many yards? Jahmyr Gibbs finished the game with 10 receptions. Had I told you going into that, you're thinking, oh my gosh, he feasted. Jahmyr Gibbs, their home run hitting running back, can bust one for 60 or 70 on any given play, in any given circumstance, against any given defense. Had I told you Jahmyr Gibbs had 10 receptions on 10 targets, you're probably thinking, oh my God, he probably had 90 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs had 10 receptions for 31 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 4 for 45. Montgomery had 4 for 18. Everything in that first half for Jared Goff, check down, check down, check down. You tip your hat to Jeff Hafley. You tip your hat to Green Bay's defense for stepping up to the plate and delivering, but it was a pretty vanilla scheme. You did not see the, what word do I want to use? Maybe tomfoolery isn't right, but you didn't see the misdirections, the Detroit being able to navigate around and sort of dictate a defense that they're going up against having to play a guessing game. It was Green Bay's defense that had Detroit's offense on their toes. Whereas last year, in the last couple of years, the last 2-3 years, it was never like that. The Lions' offense dominated almost everyone. And so it's going to be a feel-out process for them. But it looked mighty vanilla. Mighty vanilla compared to what we've seen with that offense the last couple of years. And then, like, the flip side of that for Green Bay, you're up 17-3 at half, and Josh Jacobs, who was one of the best running backs in the entire National Football League a year ago, Josh Jacobs had 6 carries for 8 yards at halftime, yet the offense felt like it was humming. And that was because of the passing game. I talked about big chunk plays. Green Bay, what were the numbers? I'd have to find it. But Jordan Love, despite the passing game kind of looking just not in sync for a lot of last year, Jordan Love was huge in passing plays of 20 and 40-plus yards a year ago. I'm trying to find the numbers. I had them somewhere. Again, we bounce around. Here it is. The Packers were 5th in the NFL last year with 59 completions of 20-plus yards. Love was tied for second with Joe Burrow, behind only Lamar Jackson with 12 completions of 40-plus yards. And so you flip that around, you're like, well, Detroit's defense was pretty good last year, dealt with a crap load of injuries, still persevered. How'd they do in that department? Lions allowed 62 completions of 20 or more yards last year, second most in the NFL. They allowed 10 completions of 40 or more yards, which was tied for the 4th most. Well, we had a 40-yarder. Romeo Doubs had a 48-yarder on a seat on a 2-play scoring drive. Jaden Reed had a 26-yarder and a 17-yarder. Wicks had a 16-yarder. Kraft had a 15-yard touchdown reception. Those big chunk plays in the passing game were there early. They were there often in the first half for Green Bay. Now, Detroit, to their credit, that defense buckled down in the passing game. Jordan Love should have had a pick. Anzalone dropped one, and then a couple plays later, Brian Branch had a pick six that was called back for defensive holding, but I don't think it was on Branch. So it didn't negate like that interaction between Love's bad decision to throw it and Branch's interception. I think the holding, I could be wrong on that, but I believe the holding was on a different member of the secondary for Detroit. But Love got away with one in the second half. Detroit really buckled down the pass defense, but then Josh Jacobs started getting a couple of chunk runs, and he had a touchdown run, I think it said on CBS, for the 9th straight game. And he only finished 19 carries, 66 yards, but again, he had 6 carries for 8 yards at halftime. So in the second half, you're talking about, my math isn't great, but that's 13 carries for 66 minus 8, 58 yards. So 13 for 58 in the second half. It's pretty damn good for Josh Jacobs against a good Detroit front. And then just going back to how Green Bay closed it out, Rashawn Gary with a sack on a near safety, Colby Wood making plays, Edgerrin Cooper's everywhere. D. Wyatt had, at the time, what was like the dagger sack late on a turnover on downs. And I kept thinking to myself, Green Bay's defense looked this damn good. Micah Parsons gets his sack on a play where he just didn't quit. That play helped encapsulate exactly why Green Bay traded for Micah Parsons, because it's awesome to see him just on a certain stunt, you can line him up over the ball and then have him cross with a defensive lineman. You can line him up on the edge and just have him speed right by a right tackle or a left tackle and get in there for a sack. And those are the plays that, Micah Parsons can make to wreck a game. His sack on Sunday was a perfect embodiment of why you bring in a guy like Micah Parsons and how infectious that energy, that motor can be for a defense. Jared Goff takes a snap, has time to throw. Nothing's open downfield. Tip your cap to Green Bay secondary. Tip your cap to Jeff Hafley for the play call. Goff then rolls out to his right towards the near sideline. And you can see it on your TV, but it's to Goff's back, so obviously he doesn't see it. And the crowd starts building up their energy because they see Micah Parsons. It was like a cheetah chasing down its prey in the wild. Micah Parsons, it almost looked like slow-mo, and I'm not, embellishing here at all. It's just Micah Parsons is just barrel rolling towards Jared Goff, and you can see it coming from 1,000 yards away, but Jared Goff is facing upfield looking for a wide receiver, doesn't see Micah Parsons from behind, and it was an incredible hustle effort sack for Micah Parsons. The sideline went nuts. I saw Lucas Van Ness was on the sideline on that play. Go back and watch Lucas Van Ness's reaction and the rest of the players around him that were on camera, on the bottom part of the screen after that sack by Micah Parsons. When you have these young players like Lucas Van Ness, Colby Wooden's trying to make a name for himself, Brenton Cox is still a young player, Kingsley Enagbari's in a contract year. They see Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons could have just mailed it in, said, I'm way up here near the left hash. Goff's all the way towards the right sideline. No, that motor keeps going. He said in his introductory press conference, Micah Parsons said, I have one level, it's go. I'm always on go. And he backed up that quote in his opening presser in Green Bay with that play. And I think it can have a domino effect on a defense who says, you know what, if this dude who's the highest paid non-quarterback in league history can make an effort play like that, what's my excuse? Enagbari's like, what's my excuse? I'm in a contract here. I need to make those plays. Lucas Van Ness is like, I've had 2 really quiet years as a former first-round pick. I can make those plays. I need to make those plays. It's infectious to see a guy like that who has the money now, who has the notoriety, who's on a Hall of Fame trajectory to make that sort of hustle play. I love seeing that type of sack, that type of play for Micah Parsons, because I think it can have a trickle-down effect to the rest of the defense. They're like, this dude's 100% just busting his ass. Again, in a game at that point, fourth quarter, the Packers have things well under control. It would have been so easy for Parsons to say, I missed all of the offseason. I'm still ramping up. The gas tank's a little low right now because I'm not in, my normal football regular season condition. And instead, he just put his foot down in the accelerator, chased down Jared Goff, got an incredible sack. And for all those young guys on the defense, and really the defense as a whole, I think that's a staple play to look at, to circle and say, what's your excuse to take a play off, or what's your excuse to not just empty the tank? Look at Micah Parsons is doing it. Only out there for 29 snaps on a pitch count. It was incredible. But I kept reminding myself as well. By the way, Mitch, I'm on YouTube. Please click the subscribe button if you haven't already as we build this thing up. Packers beat the Lions 27-13. Now they quickly turn it around. You have Washington coming in for Thursday Night Football. I'm reminding myself, peeking at the initial numbers on the snap counts and seeing that Micah Parsons only played 29 snaps, which was expected, like he was going to be on a pitch count for this one. With the back injury, still getting into condition, and now a new system in Green Bay with Jeff Hafley, you knew he wasn't going to be out there for like 80, 90, 100% of the snaps. But I'm reminding myself, this defense looked this damn good, this dominant against Detroit, who's cream of the crop in the NFC the last couple of years, right? Coming up short of reaching a Super Bowl, but 15-2, 1 seed, get a bye last year. Injuries kind of caught up to him in the playoffs after the bye against Washington. I think year before that, heartbreak against, I think it was San Francisco in the NFC Championship. But Detroit's knocking on the door. And for Green Bay's defense to dominate in that fashion, and me tell myself, this was with Micah Parsons on a pitch count. This was without Nate Hobbs. Did you see how confident Carrington Valentine looked out there? Did you see Quay Walker in on a ton of plays, 2 TFLs? Did you see Edgerrin Cooper bouncing around like a pinball? Seemingly every time there was a tackle on defense, Edgerrin Cooper was either the one making the tackle or he was in the vicinity of what was going on. On some of those splash plays for the defense too, those TFLs, those sacks, those quarterback hits. And I'm reminding myself, perhaps the biggest loudmouth on the defense, a guy who plays with an enormous chip on his shoulder regardless of circumstance, a guy who's going to jaw with the opposing offense, a guy who's going to make plays for this defense, Nate Hobbs, your second corner. He didn't play in this game. An offense that is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, I don't even remember his name. Jamison Williams had 4 receptions for 23 yards. Like Jahmyr Gibbs, that's a home run hitter. He can take the lid off a defense and go for 70 yards any given moment. It's an offense with those two. Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, David Montgomery. Tesla had that amazing touchdown catch at the end of the game, the rookie. Packers didn't have Nate Hobbs. Micah Parsons was on a pitch count. What does this look like when Micah Parsons is out there as a full-time starter in that superstar role? What does this look like when Hobbs is back? I thought Javon Bullard was good today. His name was called so many times as Javon Bullard, and he was flying in. He was like a missile. And so you bring Nate Hobbs back, and you're like, man, that's great, but CV was awesome today. And I think it was CV in coverage on that touchdown, just barely missed getting his fingertips on it, but at least it was a garbage time touchdown and not one of big importance, because now you learn from that if you're CV. Maybe undercut it a little early, mistimed his jump by a half second. Maybe you'd have to ask him. But what does this defense look like when Hobbs is back and Parsons is cut loose and out there for damn near every single snap? Because the product looked pretty good today. Pretty damn good today for the Packers. I'll finish with this. Detroit's going to be fine. Like, I am in no way convinced this is going to be that, like, this was a sign of what's to come for Detroit this year. I believe this was a Packers team that saw back in May when the schedule came out that Detroit was week 1, saw that they had been punked by the Lions at Lambeau the last few years, saw that they were 1-5 against Detroit in the last 6, saw that Detroit was replacing an OC and a DC, and Green Bay was licking their chops, and they're like, this is our chance here. First season opener at home in the Matt LaFleur era, who's in his 7th year. Like, everything was aligned for Green Bay. Now, they still had to go out and execute, and they went out and dominated. I felt all right about Green Bay's chances going into this one. I did not expect them to just manhandle Detroit the way they did. I did not expect that. But there were things lining up where it was like Green Bay should here be giving one hell of a swing at Detroit. First season opener at Lambeau Field in the LaFleur era. Detroit's replacing an OC and a DC. You just traded for Micah Parsons, a blue chipper in the NFL, a blue chipper in the National Football League, who, was on a pitch count, but Jordan Love, I know he's got the thumb on the left hand, but fully good to go. We don't know what percentage he was playing at after the sprained MCL in week 1. He missed week 2, week 3 a year ago. Groin injury against Jacksonville. Clearly labored through that the next couple of games, like couldn't run at all, but was able to throw, stand in the pocket. A lot of things lined up for Green Bay in this one, in my opinion, but they still had to go out and get it done, and they did that with a giant exclamation point. But to me, Detroit's going to be all right. Detroit's still a good team. They'll figure it out. They have too many good pieces. The one thing that worries me if I'm a Lions fan, and I would imagine they would agree with me on this, the schedule, especially on the road, is like something again, not exaggerating, it is like something I've truly never seen before. So you know about the division games, right? They're going to play at Minnesota, at Chicago. They just played at Green Bay. Outside of that, Detroit, their next game is at home against Chicago. That'll be fun. Ben Johnson comes back home after taking over Chicago. But road games for Detroit. Monday Night Football Week 3 at Baltimore. Lamar Jackson, multiple-time MVP. You know the story. Lamar Jackson's incredible. Top 4 quarterback at worst. Top 3, 2, maybe Evans is the best, I don't know. But Lamar Jackson at worst, top 4 quarterback in the NFL. Because I think of Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, and Lamar all kind of clumped together, and then you pick the order. Anyways, Lions play at Baltimore on a Monday night. They play at Cincinnati. They play at Kansas City on a Sunday night. They play at Washington. They play at Philadelphia on a Sunday night. They play at the LA Rams. Again, listen to this. Let me break it down this way. They play at Baltimore. Lamar Jackson's a multiple-time MVP. The Ravens are a lot of people's pick to win the Super Bowl this year. They play at Cincinnati. Joe Burrow's been to a Super Bowl. A lot of people think Cincinnati's going to bounce back this year. They had to cling on for dear life. They beat Cleveland earlier on Sunday. They play at Kansas City. Self-explanatory. Chiefs lose to the Chargers. Chiefs are not going to go into some crazy tailspin. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. That'll be tough at Arrowhead. They play at Washington, who Went to the NFC Championship a year ago with rookie quarterback Jane Daniels. Expectation is he takes another step forward this year, maybe a few steps forward this year. Oh, by the way, Washington eliminated Detroit a year ago. You play at Philadelphia, self-explanatory. Reigning Super Bowl champs. You play at Los Angeles, who almost beat Philadelphia in Philly in I won't say snowstorm, but with snow flurries last year in the postseason. They have Matthew Stafford, who, oh, by the way, has a Super Bowl ring. Oh, by the way, former quarterback of the Lions, and the Lions eliminated the Rams. Was it 2 years ago with Matt Stafford? So you know he's going to want to get a little lick back. There isn't a road game the Lions have this year where I see like, oh, that team's not going to the playoffs, or that team shouldn't go to the playoffs. Baltimore should be a playoff team. Cincinnati, yes. Kansas City, yes. Washington, Philly, LA Rams, yes. Green Bay, yes. Minnesota, Chicago, the other two division games. It's the Lions, to me, I'm not panicking if I'm a Lions fan. I'm not panicking if I'm the Lions. They'll be all right. The one thing I would be cognizant of is that schedule is brutal. That schedule is brutal to go through. It's like, oh, you get the Bears at home. You would think, man, who knows? But you would think the Lions win that, but then at Baltimore. Then you get Cleveland at home, and it's like, okay, yeah, you would think the Lions take care of business at home against Cleveland. Then you're at Cincy, at Kansas City. Then you're at home against Tampa. That's not going to be easy. That's Monday night. Then you're at home against the Vikings. That's not going to be easy. Then you're on the road at Washington, at Philly, back-to-back weeks. Like, the schedule is crazy. And unfortunately for Detroit, if you're a Lions fan, got off to the wrong step in this one against Green Bay. Incredible performance for the Packers. We'll have a deeper breakdown sometime, maybe Monday, Tuesday. We'll look at snap counts too. But defense set the tone. Remarkable. I mean, Jeff Hafley put on an absolute clinic. And so many like fun boxes were checked. Like Micah Parsons did get his first sack. Crowd went crazy. Matthew Golden had his first reception. I know it was on a jet touch pass for Savion Williams, but he had his first NFL reception. Zach Tom got hurt, hip injury, short week turnaround. That'll be something to monitor throughout the week, obviously. And again, I jump on right after, so I did not hear. I mean, I could try to see if LaFleur, who probably already had his postgame, said something about it. But Anthony Belton ended up getting some reps late at right tackle. But who the Packers had just traded for from Philadelphia, Darian Kinnard. He played on the offensive line when Tom went out, but that'll be just, again, something to monitor for Green Bay, because you have a quick turnaround now for Washington, who beat the Giants, and that'll be another test, another litmus test for Green Bay. How do you respond on a short week? You're at home, yes, but Washington went to the NFC Championship last year. I'm reading something per ESPN. Micah Parsons played 45% of the defensive snaps, finished with 3 pressures, second most on the Packers. Lucas Van Ness had 4. The results of the 3 pressures for Micah Parsons, one was his sack, one was an interception from Evan Williams, and the other was a 2-yard loss on a completion. I would say that's an impact. I'd say that's making an impact. Thank you, Jerry Jones. Let me know what you guys and gals think. Always appreciative of all the support. Please click the subscribe button. The goal is 1,000 by the end of the Packers season, and I have faith that we will get there. Let me know what you guys and girls think. We'll have other videos throughout the week. Snap counts on Monday. Final thoughts before the Thursday night game against Washington. We'll see you then.